Hello everyone, it's Charlton. Please subscribe to my channel. Tap the notification bell. I'd appreciate it majorly. And I've been making video after video about this. The two missing kids, Vallow and Tylee Ryan out of Idaho. And this is just more of that. And I've been saying that I think this is about life insurance. That was what my feeling was, and I continue to think that. Although not I think every single situation is the same, and they all have sort of differing circumstances. But I believe that's the common thread: is that there is an element of collecting on life insurance, But I don't know that there's any one of them is flat out like murder. I think, but I don't. My suspicion was that Tammy Daybell was sick and terminally ill, and same with Alex Cox, or that he was. I don't know why he looks so different in these two photos, and maybe it's just me, and and they're only 2.5 years apart. But to me, those seem to be quite different for just 2.5 years. This is June 2019. This has got to be more recent, I assume. And he died December 12th, 2019. So I don't know if that's just me or if it's because of an illness or because of drugs. But Charles Vallow more. That one I kind of didn't. The terminal being sick, terminal illness, and that didn't really make sense to me, and I feel like that's not the reason behind his, and I think it's something else. But if I could, and I'll just try to get right to the point because I don't want to just blabber on and on. I just try to make this video, and it just goes on and on, and. But very quickly, this is just from earlier. The authorities are looking into this. They're definitely thinking that this is a possibility as well. On the Facebook page over at East Idaho News, this is back on January 7th. One question that has been raised is whether Tammy Daybell had a large life insurance policy. And in the article linked to that, it says eastidahonews.com asked Humphreys, who's the sheriff of Fremont County Sheriff's Office, which is one of the three, entities investigating this: Rexburg Police Department, Fremont County Sheriff's Office, and the FBI. So East Idaho News asked Humphreys if Chad Daybell was acting unusual or suspicious when deputies were at the home the morning that she died, or the morning after she died. To my knowledge, he was responding like anybody would whose spouse had just passed away. That's why the deputies didn't suspect anything suspicious, Humphrey said. A few days later, Humphrey said his office was alerted by detectives in Arizona about the other deaths. Tammy's body was exhumed from the Springville Cemetery, Evergreen Cemetery, and an autopsy was performed. Investigators are waiting for autopsy lab results, which could take a few more weeks. One question that has been raised is whether Tammy Daybell had a large life insurance policy. Humphrey said he could not comment on that issue, but confirmed it is being investigated. There is some information along those lines that I'm not at liberty to speak about right now, he said. Okay, so it's at least being investigated. He can't comment on it, and there's some information along those lines that he's not at liberty to speak about right now. But also, in addition to this, a few days later, Humphrey said his office was alerted by detectives in Arizona about the other deaths. That did not include Alex Cox. He hadn't died by then. Okay, he died after, after Tammy Daybell's body was exhumed. The day after her body was exhumed on the 11th, December 11th. He died on the 12th. So the other deaths, that's got to be Charles Vallow, which was just in July of the same year, or that same year, 2019, and Joseph Ryan, which was April 2018. So I'm going to set Joseph Ryan aside. Joseph Ryan, 2018 death. my feeling was that it is about life insurance, but it wasn't that Charles Vallow was facing some kind of terminal illness, and this was a way to basically still collect on the life insurance. It wasn't that. I don't think that, and I don't even know. I have no idea. I had been thinking this because it happens quite a bit. It really does in the financial services industry. It happens more often than you would think. And a lot of times it goes unreported because companies don't want it reported, where people are stealing money from clients. I worked in financial services. I'll just get it as quick as I can. I worked in financial services for a short period of time. I hated it, but I did it, and I sold investments. Both some insurance products and Series 7, mutual fund stocks, bonds, whatever. And there's this different license for each of those. For fixed annuities insurance, that's just like a life insurance license that you get. That's actually one of the easiest ones to get to pass your Series 7 and to trade and sell stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and things like that. It's a little bit more difficult. And most of Charles Vallow's licenses, almost everyone that I saw was only life insurance. There was one state, Colorado, where we had both for life insurance and for variable annuities, which have some investments wrapped up inside of them. Anyways, but everywhere else was just life insurance. In fact, when you search his name in the broker search, which is a national database, it doesn't come up. And when you search another financial advisor that worked at the same office as his, and actually at one point appeared as one of his directors of his business listing in just one place, that person comes up immediately. He wasn't licensed to sell, stocks and bonds, just life insurance, and which includes fixed annuities and life insurance. But one thing, he did have a life insurance license in Idaho, but he had in many states where he did business: Idaho, Utah, Arizona, California, Hawaii, but not at Texas, not everywhere. Other places he didn't. New Mexico he didn't, and a couple other surrounding states, whichever. So, but when I in my brief career in financial services, there was a person who was basically stealing from customers, and and he was a huge producer too, huge. We literally were used to be told to stand up and applaud this person because he used to put up such big numbers. And as it was told, and I know the person. This wasn't somebody that was in the company that was I'd heard about. I knew him. I didn't know him real well, but I knew who he was, definitely. And he was friends with the dude who I basically worked for, my senior broker, when I was junior broker. And he was basically, I think like in most of these instances, that usually starts out relatively innocently, if you could say that, and it's just, it's like a one-time thing, where they just do it once and they think they'll just put it back. And they just need a quick 10. And he was a big gambler. He used to go to Atlantic City a lot. And that played into it. But they do it once. They take the $10,000 from one customer account and they don't seem to notice that it's missing. And it's just so easy, so they do it again. And this dude literally, as it was told to me, used to, like he would have a lot of older clients, the client sitting in his office, that's in surrounded by glass inside of a branch, and would go out to the teller line to get a deposit for her and do it, just do the activity for her because she might be older or whatever, and would wave in there and say the client needs $20,000 when they really just needed 10. And he would just, keep 10 for himself and give her 10. And as soon as she noticed, whenever they noticed that something was missing, he'd just be like, oh my God, it was just, there's a clerical mistake. They're always screwing things up. And, you would replace it, by doing the same thing from somebody else's account, and just keep doing that and putting out fires over and over until you can't put the fires out anymore, and it all just blows up. Somebody comes in with, their kids come in with their elderly mom, inquiring, and eventually it just you can't hide it anymore. And that dude, got in trouble. But a lot of times the company, because they don't want this getting out there too much. If it does, it does. And they cooperate fully with the investigators, obviously. And it was in the paper somewhat. But but it scares the death of investors when they hear that somebody is stealing money from clients. That's not a good thing, especially for independent brokers and stuff like that. You're toast. So, and that's always a worry when people go to an independent, centralized broker somewhere that's just a small, tiny firm that might even be one or two people or just one person. That's always a concern, and that's why, because there's nobody backing them up. Anyways, that just got to me to thinking when I was looking at all these different, where he had licenses in all these different places, and also when I was looking at Charles's, just all their different living arrangements, where they were living, and every time I would look up the place where they were living, and they're extremely expensive places. First it started with the Princeville, Hawaii, where they had a short time there, from December 2014 to mid to late 2015 in 4 different locations. Those places were, and they were identified addresses where they were staying. 2 for Charles Vallow, 2 for Lori Vallow, and they were all right in Princeville, which is an exclusive, non-corporated, high-end community in Kauai County, I think it's called, in Hawaii. But one property was $2.3 million, another one was $1.6, another one was $1.3 million, $1.2. And when I looked at who owned those properties, they didn't own them. And to the best of my knowledge, I couldn't see through it back into the ownership history. I don't think they ever did. I think they just rented it, and it just must have been so expensive to rent there. And when I looked at other places, Austin, Houston, same thing. The places that were listed as Charles Vallow's address, they weren't. He never owned them. He must have rented them. And same in Arizona, including the house where he was killed, where Lori Vallow was staying with her brother and JJ and Tylee Ryan. There was Kay Vallow's Facebook post where she described that, and she actually said, that he went to Lori's house, which he paid for, and she put in parentheses, but he didn't. He's probably paying for the rent, but he didn't own the place. And then there was a home in another home in Chandler, Arizona, a very nice home where they were living prior to that. I think when they moved from Hawaii back to Arizona, they moved into a big 4,000 square foot, 5-bathroom, pool home that's like $3,700 a month to rent. So what I'm getting at is basically seeing, all these insurance licenses in multiple states, and living in very, very expensive places to live, but never bothering to invest in owning a home, but just throwing money away on rent. $4,000 a month. That's for the Chandler home. I mean, that one was a $700,000 home. I can't imagine what the rent was, in Hawaii, even though they were only there for, less than a year. I'm just saying that and that. I mean, I know also saw, I'm already starting to not make sense. This is really difficult. There's so much to this. That I saw in the most recent Daily Mail article that was talking and reviewing the latest part of the puzzle about Alex Cox having an altercation, an assault, having an assault charge against Joseph Ryan in 2007, a whole nother incident from way before. But in that same article, it said that Charles Vallow, in one of his court filings, it said he made $240,000 a year, and that's a very healthy income, and he's been supposedly, according to his LinkedIn page, in business for almost 40 years. In his self-employed investment business. I mean, even just take 10 years of that, or 20 years of that, making anywhere near that, and you're talking, $4 million, whatever. 2.4 million for 10 years, 4.8 million for 20 years, etc. But basically, the money it doesn't seem to add up to me. And, it seems like they're constantly throwing money away on rent. They're never saving a penny. And, it just made me think of that maybe this wasn't similar to the story I told you about the guy who worked where I used to work and was basically stealing from clients. And just kept putting out one fire by stealing from another client, and kept doing that for quite some time before he eventually was caught. And he continued to put up huge numbers and produce and work. He was a huge gambler too. There's actually a movie called Owning Mahoney with Philip Seymour Hoffman in it. It's the exact same concept, and it's based on a real guy on a huge level. A banker from Toronto, Canada. I think there's actually a street named after him in Atlantic City where he was doing the same thing. And he was he was an excellent employee, and he gets promoted, and he's basically now has the authority to more or less sign checks, he has that power in the bank, and he ends up stealing. First he steals 10,000, then it's 100,000. He ends up stealing like $50 million from the bank or something like that, and flying down to Atlantic City weekend after weekend, losing more and more. But he was brilliant too, mathematically brilliant. He almost broke the casino. He was so close to completely breaking the whole casino because he was such a good gambler, but eventually it falls apart on him, and it all comes crashing down. So I just thought maybe, this is a very long explanation, that maybe Charles Vallow, unlike the other two, Alex Cox and Tammy Daybell, who I suspect were I think Tammy Daybell was sick, and I don't know if Alex Cox was sick or drugs. And just in a bad way, and was just helping throughout this to basically kind of quarterback it and make it happen. Because in the end, he could take the fall for all of it, by dying. So I don't know how he died. But maybe Charles' back was up against the wall, and this was his only way out to kind of stage this whole thing. The authorities maybe are closing in on him, and life insurance is weird. It's like you name your beneficiary. There's no estate process. It bypasses probate. That's one of the things that's great about life insurance, fixed annuities. You name the beneficiary, goes right to that person. That's all you need is a death certificate, and it's done. And so that was my that's where I was thinking. This was. And Alex would be the perfect candidate to help to get this done. Somebody who has a previous record with the previous husband, from 7 years ago, attacking him with a stun gun. That's on record. So he's the ideal candidate to do this. To be this person that shoots Charles Vallow. This is body cam of it, This is body cam of that day. And I watched it already. Maybe I'll talk over it while I watch. And a couple things. As this guy comes up, I'm gonna lower it because I can't think with the noise in the background. It'll be linked in the description if you want to watch it. It's brand new, definitely, and it's worth watching. So as he walks through this home, right at that point, Alex Cox is being directed out of the house by the officers. There's already multiple officers there, but this guy who comes here with his body cam, that might be Alex right there. I believe it is. I'm almost certain it is. And he comes back out and talks to him just for a second, and Alex is sitting on the ground and feeling his head and looking at his fingers to see, because supposedly he got hit in the head with the bat. But according to this, he goes in, the gun's in the bedroom, the first bedroom or the front bedroom, basically on the pillow. And Charles Vallow is laying on the floor in the living room. And then you can see throughout the house, it's kind of lightly furnished, just mattresses and stuff thrown about. Some rooms completely absent of furniture, and in multiple times, he mentions that Charles was shot, I think one guy says 4 or 5 times, even though it was reported again and again he was shot twice in the chest. And then another officer, when he goes back outside and talks to Alex Cox at the curb for just a moment, and then comes back in, an officer said he was shot many times, and there were several shells on the ground. So, I mean, it just seems to reinforce that, they wanted to make sure the job was done. But I think it was, as I state, I think maybe, I don't know, maybe Charles wanted it this way. Nobody seemed to contest this, until now. It wasn't until, JJ and Tylee were missing, and they were missing for some time, actually, sort of. They haven't been seen since September. It was only after Tammy Daybell died that we started anybody started, speaking publicly about this, to reporters and so forth. So, I don't know. I think I said, they're just not all the same. It's not like they all had terminal illness and they all, staged to death to collect on life insurance. I don't think that. I think the first one was how I sort of laid it out. I think this dude, was the perfect person to help out in that. He, fit the bill because of the previous conviction with the third husband with Joseph Ryan in the stun gun incident in 2007. I think, the court documents that were filed in September, January 2015, stating some of these things, stating that Lori Vallow would kill him, telling his attorney that if something happened to him, the brother and Lori killed him. That perfectly sets it up, man. And, and it all, that's Alex Cox right there. Say it all went to plan, and then it just move on to phase 2. I think Tammy Daybell, I don't think Chad Daybell had anything to do with killing his wife. I don't know why I think that, but that's what I think. I think she was sick, and, this was just, the first one went to plan and worked. Nobody was working, okay? And so was the second one. I mean, let's say I'm right and Tammy Daybell, nobody was even contesting that. It was only until JJ, people inquired about did the welfare check, the grandparents, Kay Vallow and Larry Woodcock, Kay Vallow Woodcock and Larry Woodcock asked the authorities to do a welfare check on JJ and Tylee, that this all blew wide open. And then once, even though, actually, according to this, and then I'm going to stop. According to this, a few days later, Humphrey said his office was alerted by detectives in Arizona about other deaths. Tammy's body was exhumed from Springville Evergreen Cemetery and an autopsy was performed. That's a few days later, after Tammy Daybell died. That's October 19th. So that's well before, well before Alex Cox died. So, it leads me to believe that the authorities suspected something. Maybe the relatives who we didn't hear from until, because they didn't ask for the welfare check until somewhere around November 26th. That's when the search warrant was served for the welfare check. This is a few days later after October 19th. That would have been October 21st, almost a full month before that the authorities suspected something. And, one other goofy thing, in the Wayback Machine, that looks at websites. There it is. That basically takes a picture of a website for some websites and, at certain periods in time. Oddly, for Charles Vallow's business website, it took a picture, a snapshot on July 11th, the day he was killed. And, that could be just a random coincidence. It probably is. And my guess is it is. But I don't know. I just thought maybe the authorities were even before he was killed, were zeroing in on him. And when he was killed, I don't know that they have anything to do with, the Wayback Machine website. And that's the story there, man. All right, thanks for watching my videos and hanging in there through this video and every video. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.